Hello, everyone. This is thank you for joining. This is Stephanie Alonso, and this is our first podcast episode. This is the Stephanie Alonso show. A- and don't forget to subscribe. It's new, and I'm so glad you're here. I wanted to introduce myself, and I'm Stephanie Alonso, as, as I said. And I like to introduce Anna. And so for now, Anna, I'll tell you my background. So I am a early Head Start educator. I work with Head Start, and I'm a home visitor. So which means I go into homes, I help families, help parents, mom or dad, make sure that they're helping their children reach their milestones. I'm coaching families, studied early childhood education, and it is my passion. I really enjoy learning and providing what I've learned over the years. I've been in early Head Start for 7 years, but I also studied childhood education, and I've been working in the fields for over 20 years. In addition, that I also raised three children who are now in their early 20s. And let's see. So yeah, it is my passion to work with moms and their children, helping them meet their milestones. Tell me about yourself, Anna.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's great to hear about your background and the things that you do. And my name is Anna, like introduced me, and um, I am happy to be here on your podcast. And
I'm happy that you're here. Thank you for accepting my invitation to be my first guest.
Of course, I have I'm a teacher. I have a dual major in elementary school and autism special ed, uh, and I've been working with families over the years. Um, like I mentioned before, I came to the United States when I was 16, not knowing one word in English, and thank God I was able to go through high school and then some years in college. And that's how I made myself, working with the district and, helping a lot of families that came the same way, came from other countries. And here we are, just like, helping families and working with kids that need that help from the system and from us, from teachers. So thank you so much for inviting me and being here in your show.
I'm so glad you're here. So tell me a little bit more about your background. So we have this climate right now where immigration is a really big thing.
Yes.
And you mentioned that you came. How old were you when you came to America?
I was born and raised in Guatemala.
Ah, see.
I came to the United States when I was 16. And since then, I went to school, I went to high school and did 5 years of college and got my degrees. And like I mentioned before, I used to work with families who were in the same situation that I was, came to this country not knowing the language, not knowing the culture. And I developed a passion to help them, help with their children because they had no clue what they were getting into when it comes to the school system. So that's my background, and I have two daughters and a grandson. He's almost 3, and it's just I'm enjoying being around him, learning from him, and learning how he's challenging me too.
And you're probably also using your skills that you acquired, from your education as a school age teacher, right?
Yes, I am. I am.
Yes.
It is. You know what? It is really amazing how I can see, the things that with my children, I didn't do or I did.
Yes.
And now with him, it's like, no, we're not gonna do this. I am gonna do this, and I'm telling my dad, like, no, don't do this and don't do that, because I didn't have much experience when I had them, but
Right.
now that he was born, I can put all that knowledge, and everything that I learned, in his life. So
Well, that's great. I believe when we talked earlier in the week, you mentioned that being an immigrant and coming here, relocating from Guatemala, you had to translate for your family.
I did, yes, yeah.
And how did that impact you growing up? And to what you're doing now, I think you kind of related to your field and your education and how you utilize that experience to want to help other families who need also translation and may not know how to navigate the school system.
Yeah, it was really challenging for me coming to a country where I did not speak the language, I did not know anything about the culture, and I had to learn everything from zero to where I'm at right now. And not having friends or family around. So there is a lot of families that are, in the same situation. They don't know where to go if their child is, developing uh, what is it, a special
Having
need,
some
having
developmental
some development
delays.
delays or something like that. They don't know. See, I've been working with families um, that they think that their child's behavior is normal, when it's not. So that's where I came in, and I'm like, okay, so let me explain, in your language, in Spanish, what this means and the help that we can provide for them.
So you offer resources that help them. How about the school district? The school district you worked with, were they able to support them in that need, or is that just something that you were passionate about?
Yeah, they do, but the thing is that some parents are refusing to get that help, and they're like, "No, my child is fine. They don't need the help," and that's where I try to explain, like the district has resources to help them to have a better education, because that's what it's all about, just to, you know, uh, just not sending them to school. It's just like having the proper education, the proper programs that they need. But sometimes they're just focused on working and working and not, in the child's need.
Well, I totally get that because I'm also an immigrant. I came here when I was 3 years old from Belize, and when we were in Belize, my mom didn't work. My mom stayed home. My
Yeah.
dad was a policeman, and I had four other older siblings, and I love that. I mean, I don't
Right.
remember much, but I know that I had an attachment to my mom, and she was always there for me. But coming to America, it just changed. She started to work, and like you mentioned, some of the families that you work with, it's just. I'm sure they wouldn't work if they didn't have to, but being in America, that you have to have a
You have to.
livelihood.
You have
have
to.
to earn that
Yes.
money. So
Exactly.
now you have both parents working. My
Exactly.
dad worked full time.
Yeah.
My mom worked full time, and so there weren't much support for us. We had a big family, but everyone was doing their thing. Everyone had to work. So, you do fall through the cracks. And then
Yeah.
you're in a district and you're in a school setting, and they may not have the resources that you need.
Exactly.
But what you mentioned to me earlier just now was that the families that you work with didn't want the support from the school district. They may not have felt comfortable, safe. Safe is a
Exactly.
really important
Yeah.
element to have.
Yes.
But you brought a particular element to to your environment, which allowed them
Exactly.
to feel safe, where they can feel that they can trust you, and
Yeah.
you opened up the doors for them to want to say
Yes.
yes. You know what? I need the help. I need the support. Tell me about that.
See, the thing is that in our culture, we were not used to hear, or we're not informed about OCD the terms OCD, ADHD. We were not used to. People were not people. They didn't even know what that is. That was like what kind of how would that affect their child, and and they were refused, even if the school or the school district were referring them to special programs. They were kind of like denying the fact that no, my child doesn't need this. And it was for a lot of them, it was the first time hearing that term, OCD, ADHD. So it was kind of it was hard for them, and that's where my job came in. That's where I became an advocate for them, trying to explain, look, this is what it is, and this is what the child needs. I know you didn't hear about this before, but this is what is happening, and in order to your child to grow and have a better education, he needs to get, enroll in this program. So that was my job back in those years.
So you helped them navigate the services that they needed. So you mentioned that you were in special ed, and that apparently all of your children who were in that special ed department had IEPs. Tell me about your experience with IEPs.
Well, I was not much involved with IEPs. I was more like, um, that was I was a last resource for them. Like, they went through all the IEPs and all the services that they will get from the district, but still they were in denial. They were still like, I don't think my child needs to, I think he's fine. I think he will be okay in a couple months, a couple years.
He will grow.
Yeah, he will grow. And that's
Develop.
where I was, that, and it was not something that the district was offering. I was like volunteering, like explaining, what it was about, how it will impact and how will it help the child at that moment.
So I know in my program that I work with, we have coordinators. We have coordinators for mental health. We have coordinators for disability. We have coordinators for health and nutrition. So if a family comes to me and says, you know what, my child's sucking their thumb and they're
Yeah.
3 years old,
Yeah.
or my child is 18 months and he's still not talking. So then I can reach out to my coordinator, my disability coordinator,
Yes.
and say, look, I have a family who scored low on their ASQs.
Yeah.
Once I do assessments, and once I do my assessment, I determine that child's milestone, if they're reaching those milestones. And if I feel that they're not reaching their milestones, that's when the family will decide, yes, I do want my child assessed. And once they get assessed, then the assessment determines if they do need to move forward with an IEP or an FSP. And if so, that's when the services are broken down. Okay,
Right.
So we based on your child's assessment,
Yes.
this is where they scored, and
Yeah.
we feel that if they get speech therapy twice a week for an hour, or get OT twice a week, or specialized services
Yeah.
twice a week, that will help them reach their milestones. That will help them. So then you come in after the IEP is created.
I did,
You
yes.
come in when those services are already in place.
In place, yes.
Saying, so you are in the intervention classroom.
Yes.
Is that where you were located?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about your experience in the intervention
Yeah,
classroom.
it is. If a child doesn't reach their milestone at a certain time, because we go by the book, we go by from 13 to 50 months, they should be doing X, Y, and Z, right? But there's some child that they for some reason they just delay one month, 2 months behind. That doesn't mean that they need a special program, or we're gonna label them as a special need student. It's just because they're
Developmentally
developmental
delayed.
is delayed, but they're all different, And that's where I think some of the parents were like, um, no, my child is, like we're gonna give him some times and to wait and see if they did it. Some of the students, they did reach their goal at a certain time, even if it was more than that we expected by the book. um, but but they were absolutely, being in that field, it was absolutely parents that they were literally denying, and the children, they needed that help. So it was kind of hard for us to, if the parents said no, there's nothing we couldn't do.
Yeah,
If the
so
parents said yes, then we can move forward. So it was very tricky.
right. And I totally get it that you can deny being assessed.
Yeah.
You can say, you know what, I'm going to wait. A
Mm-hmm.
parent wise,
Yes.
I can wait. Let's see what happens when he's 3. Let's see what happens when he's
Yeah.
5. I'm going to work with my child.
Yes.
And really, if you don't have the background, if you don't have the skills or
Yeah.
the experience,
Yeah.
how much, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, and do you really are going to work with that child? Because that's the experience we had.
Yes,
The experience that they really went and beyond what they needed to do, to help their children, just to enroll them in sports class, like after school enrichments. But there were parents that they were like not doing the job.
Right.
So you can see the difference. Yeah, those kids needed the help. Some of they just needed an extra help, but some kids, they needed like a special program.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that it starts from home.
Yeah, they do. It does.
Do you feel that it starts from home?
Absolutely.
The developmental levels, the skills building, meeting those milestones. It really starts from home.
It does.
Should we put all that expectation on the teacher or before the children start
No,
school?
absolutely not.
Tell
the
me
teacher.
about that.
It starts from home. From even when the mother is pregnant, how they, if they're reading, the environment, it starts from there.
Yes, it does. And for me, and the work that I do, I work with pregnant moms up to 3 years old, and I look around, and I ask, do you have a library? Do you have how many books do you have? Oh, I don't have any books.
Yeah,
I don't have any books.
it's very sad.
Do
But
you
it's
sing to your child? Oh, I don't. My mom didn't sing to me.
I never read to. Yeah,
I didn't get read. So a lot of things get passed down, and studying child development, one of the things that we learned is nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
And nature makes a major impact. That's what you've passed down to your child's genes. The child's temperament determines on how the parenting, or being pregnant. Also, after the child is born, that's nurturing. What type of environment you give your children? For example, if there's no books, if there's 1 or 2 books, are the books ripped up? Are you taking your child to the park? Are you exposing them to environments where
yeah,
they can learn?
exactly.
And it sounds like what you were saying, that some of the parents that you've worked with also didn't know that those experiences were important, that parent-child
Yeah.
interaction.
Exactly.
And so they were denying that there were any issues, and therefore the child continues
Yes.
needing these services, but not
Yeah.
getting the services that they need. And so they struggled.
Yeah.
Did
Or-
you see the struggle?
Yeah, it did, and it was the other way around. There were children that they were labeled as special need when they didn't have to.
Yes.
It was just it was a matter of working with them for a couple months or a year, and they will reach their goal. So it comes to that foundation they have at home.
Yes.
You know,
I totally
it all
agree.
depends with the parents.
Yes,
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So, studying, I'm not sure if you recall this, but in child development and in the work that I do now, it's really important that we look at the domains. Do you remember the domains that there's the social, there's the emotional, there's the cognitive, there is
Mm-hmm.
the language and the motor skills. There's five domains that you know that we focus on in growth and development.
Yeah.
And not all of them are going to grow at the same time.
No, they're not.
You might have a
No.
child who's walking at 10, 11 months,
Exactly.
but when
Yeah.
now that they're 15 months, they're not talking at all, but
Yeah.
they're walking. You might have a child who can put a puzzle together,
Yeah.
stack blocks. But
Exactly.
when it comes to social emotional skills, as far as sharing, can you share with your sibling? Can you
Mm-hmm.
share with your cousin?
Yeah.
What about when your parent leaves and you're 3 years old and you're crying
Yeah.
for hours because you're missing that? There's no self regulation. So
Exactly.
those are the things that we look at, and we help parents understand that they all don't grow at the same time. So when you're telling me that some of the parents that you've worked with, um, they deny the whole need for extra support.
Yeah.
Having being in a special ed program or having an IEP is a stigma. It makes you feel as a parent inadequate. Makes you feel like you didn't do your job, or makes you feel
Yeah.
that your child is okay. And who is labeling my child? Why
Yeah.
why are you labeling my child?
Yeah.
I know my child.
Yeah.
They're okay.
Exactly.
But there's a bigger picture. There's a broader picture.
Exactly.
Your child might be saying certain things, but can they self-regulate? Can they do their homework on their own? You
Yeah.
mentioned you were in a fourth grade class.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with 3-year-olds as well, and I see that there's some that can stack blocks. There's some that can have 3 to 5 word sentences, articulate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They can respond back to me when I ask them questions. And but then there's some who are also
They don't.
three
They don't.
that can't hold a conversation, not understanding how to stack a block or two, because
Yeah.
those are all part of your cognitive skills, problem solving.
Exactly.
So all those things kind of relate to each other, and they support each other.
Yeah.
So, how do you see your children you worked with in that fourth grade class? What were some concerns that you had as a teacher?
See, I think, like I said, I go back to the parenting, what they did not do at home.
Foundation.
Foundation, yeah. And I think it's more like cultural because, I mean, you said you came here in the United States when you were 3, right?
I did.
I grew up and was raised in Guatemala. I came here when I was 16, so I have more experience seeing the school system in Guatemala and how the support system from the parents. How does that look like?
Tell me.
And
Yeah.
I think it's more like culture. It's a cultural thing that we had students in our country that they didn't know how to read, they didn't know how to write at a certain. I'm talking about second, third, fourth grade, and it was like kind of like normal. There were not assessments. There were not. We didn't have the resources that we have here. We didn't have the programs that we have here. So these parents came from that from that environment.
Yes.
Came here thinking it's gonna be the same
Right.
when it's not. So I think being here is a great opportunity for to give your child the program that they deserve.
Right. I
to
totally get
to
it.
learn how to write and read and do what they supposed to be doing at that age, but because they didn't have that help and that background in their country, and I'm not just talking about people from my country. I'm talking, people, all the immigrants. So we were dealing with that, and it was sad because I had students that they really, really need that, those programs. But, you can offer everything. You can put everything on the table. You can lay everything on the table, all the opportunities. But if the parents say no,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do.
Well, all that comes back to experience,
Yeah.
as you said. um, that comes back also from nature nurture. What you know, what that parent knew, and what their parents taught them
Mm-hmm.
were, you're going to learn to read, you're going to learn to talk, or maybe reading wasn't important at that time.
Yeah.
Maybe a generation before wasn't
Yeah.
important. Um, but I have experienced as well. I've spoken to other families that said, you know what? They didn't treat special ed
Mm-hmm.
in my country the way they treat
Exactly.
special ed here.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, there's a history, and I'd have to go back and take a look at the dates, but maybe before the 60s, maybe even all the way up to the 70s. If you displayed any type of delay,
Mm-hmm.
they would take your child and put them in a, what do they call it? A
Like a special facility,
a
right? Like
special facility. I don't want to use
exactly.
the term, but back then
Yes.
they used it. They used the
Yes.
term,
Yeah,
a
I know.
crazy house or a,
Exactly.
and so identifying and
Yes.
learning, that it's not that this is a long term. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be long term.
Exactly.
If you just had a system in
Mm-hmm.
place, where you can help that child reach their milestones. So in the 70s, that's also where when Head Start started. Actually, Head Start, Head Start started in the 60s, where
Yes.
the government,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the President Lyndon Johnson, that decided, what, there were children in the rural communities. We need to tap into them. We need to give them
Yeah.
an early start. We need to
Exactly.
give them a head start,
Yeah.
because children in the non-rural communities were had the resources. They were going to school. The children who were working on the farms,
Mm-hmm.
who were now like 5, 6, 7 years old, they're on the farm. They're working with their parents, and they're not going to school. So there was an initiative that started from the president
Mm-hmm.
that said, you know what? We're going to implement Head Start, give these children that foundation.
That opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Exactly.
opportunity.
Yes.
And so then I think maybe 5 or 6 years later is when they did the research, they did the study, they realized that, you know what, children need an early Head Start. So now let's start from pregnant moms to 3 years old. How can we help these children have an even earlier start in school,
Exactly.
learning? And
Yes.
so the whole dynamics of
Changed.
the whole
It
system
doesn't change.
changed,
Yeah.
where children weren't looked at as a problem,
Exactly.
more looked at
Yes.
how
Yeah.
can we serve these families, how can we
Yeah.
help these children.
Yeah.
And I also think the CDC um, also created a milestone chart, and I
Mm-hmm.
have to go back and take a look at when that started. You can go. Have you ever gone to the CDC website where they have the milestones? They break it down: 2 months, 4 months, and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what I use to help families understand. Okay, well, if your child is not 8 months old,
Right.
let's see what we have to look forward to when 9 months come.
Yeah.
Okay, so 9 months he should be doing this and doing
Exactly.
that.
Yes.
And so parents are like, "Wow, I didn't know this existed. I didn't know there
Yeah.
was such a thing.
Yes.
That my child is important.
Exactly.
My child is
Yeah.
valuable."
And it comes to the knowledge they were receiving. And apparently that was, like you said, these children back in those years, they were not um they were not treated as a individual that needed help. They need help to reach their milestone. For them was a problem, so they
To
we're
society. Problem
we're
to
gonna put them
society.
in this place, and I think
Institution.
is yeah, exactly,
It's an institution.
exactly, yes. So I think that's where it comes from, but now we have more opportunities and more programs that are focused on reaching those milestones for the children, but also helping parents.
Yes.
Because I encounter many parents that they didn't know what to do.
Right.
They didn't know what they're dealing with, and it was sad. But I think nowadays we have more opportunities, and in that field.
Yeah, and nowadays we do see that there are more parent-child interaction. I think that is
Yes,
key. We talked about it previously, that the value of that parent-child interaction.
it
So
is.
you have a family who came from another country who didn't have that experience, who didn't have
Yes.
that knowledge, and who didn't have the support of their government.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Unlike America, we're set up
Yeah.
to now support families and
Yes.
children with disabilities or mental health concerns or even health concerns. But in other countries, that they were still kind of behind before the
Right.
60s, before
Mm-hmm.
Lyndon Johnson created the whole initiative for Head Start to
Right.
help give children that hand. But I did talk to another family who was from another country that said, you know what, I stayed here, but looking back at my country, a new government, a new president,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a female.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what, that government changed. They implemented programs to help,
Yeah.
help children with
Exactly.
disabilities.
Yes. And that's Stephanie. It's a new approach. It's a new thing for the parents that they have more opportunities there.
Yes.
Before, they didn't even exist a program that can help these children.
Right. Yes.
But now, they have schools that are special for. I think they're still working in labeling the children what they really need, the programs that they need individually.
Yes.
But it is, they're progressing.
Yes.
So it is a good thing. But here we have all the resources. Here we have all the programs that they need to succeed.
I totally agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I totally I know that there's opportunities out there if any child has a need. Even as far as birthing your child,
Yeah.
you do not leave the hospital unless that child is checked out.
Exactly.
Unless that until that child has been examined.
Yeah.
I mean, hearing,
Everything.
your
yeah,
heart, your eyes, your
exactly.
vision, the head circumference, everything is checked before that child. I mean, back then it was you had your baby, you go home.
Exactly.
But they're doing assessments before they leave.
Yeah,
and
they
now
do.
not only that, they have what is lactation specialists.
Yes.
You
yeah.
know?
Yes.
I don't recall
yes.
having a lactation specialist.
No, me too. Yeah.
And back then, I mean, what else do they have? In addition to that, hospitals,
It's like how to change the baby. How do you? It's a lot of. It's great.
Yeah,
You know.
how do you wrap that baby up in that
Exactly.
tamale, or what is it
Yeah,
called?
it's
What do
like
they call it?
like a
The
burrito.
The burrito. Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes.
I was a new mom. I didn't know
Yeah,
any of these
yeah,
things.
yes.
I mean, I studied child development before I had my children, but going back to that stage,
Yeah.
or going back to looking back, I'm like, I was green. I didn't know how to bring a baby home. I
Exactly,
didn't know what to look
yes,
for.
yeah.
And so, but the parents nowadays, for me, the work that I do as far as health, I help families. I remind them, if your child is 6 months, there's going to be the 9-month well baby check coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Did you make that appointment? Oh, I didn't. Here comes 7 months. Oh, I forgot. Or even insurance, making sure that
Yes.
they have the insurance to go.
Yes.
Sometimes they're telling you, oh, I didn't make the appointment, or I'll make it next week. But really, they don't have the insurance.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors.
Yeah. Exactly.
And,
yes.
and not attending those well baby checks. You're missing out on some information that the doctor can provide. If you're going to a pediatrician,
Yes.
your doctor's not just checking the heart, not just checking that the limbs are working or your child can see. Your doctor is looking to make sure those domains that I mentioned earlier,
absolutely.
that the social skills,
Exactly,
how
yes.
are you're now a year old, how are you interacting with me as
yes,
a doctor?
Absolutely.
Your language.
Yes.
By 12 months old, are you saying 1 to 2 word sentences?
Exactly,
Thank
yes.
you, mommy, me, let's go.
Yes.
And if your doctor isn't, assessing that, what
Yeah.
about vision? Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All those things, even as far as nutrition.
Yeah.
If your
Oh,
child is
yes.
underweight or even overweight,
Overweight.
they're going to be
Yeah.
labeled obese
Yes. Exactly.
or underweight, nutritional wise. And those things, Anna, impact your ability to learn.
Yes.
If you are
Absolutely.
not getting the adequate nutrition, if
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
not getting your breakfast in the morning,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
And it comes to if you're not getting as a parent that information you need to help those children, then that's going to be a big problem.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then we can bring that back to cultural.
Yes.
Your doctor says your child is obese, overweight.
Yeah.
A particular culture will say, that's normal in my
Yeah,
culture.
exactly.
I feed my
Yes.
child this, and I want them to have
Yeah.
enough food.
Exactly.
But, if they're overweight, maybe they're like you said, they're in fourth
Yeah.
or third grade. Can they run around? How are
Yeah.
they experiencing PE?
Yes.
How are
Yes.
they outside with their other children? Are they climbing? Are they running? The heart. Maybe
Yes.
that
Absolutely.
weight is too much and impacting the heart. If they're underweight, nutrition wise, that impacts where?
Yes.
Your
The
brain.
brain. Yeah.
Your brain needs a certain amount of nutrition,
Yeah.
and from 0 to 5, your brain is just growing and growing and growing. And nutrition is so important for
It
growth
is.
and
Yeah.
development. And so those are some of the things that impact learning.
Oh, yes. A lot
Right?
of things. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so learning. So I remember when my children were in school, they're in middle school, and one of the surveys came out. They started to have breakfast in the classroom. Did you ever experience that?
I think so. Yes.
When
I
your
think
children were
yes.
young,
Yeah.
breakfast in the classroom, because studies show that children, I think it was 50% of children coming to school did not have breakfast at home.
Yes. Yeah.
But
That,
then,
that was correct.
right, so then they offered breakfast in the classroom or breakfast before class.
Yes.
30% of those children
Yeah.
were not eating the breakfast that was provided
Right.
from the school.
From the school. Yeah.
So here you are all day long. These children aren't eating. They didn't eat at home,
Yeah.
And
And
then-
did not even need it
at school. And so here you are in second period or middle of the day, and they didn't eat. And then sometimes here comes lunch. They might not like
Yeah.
a cultural as well. They might
Yeah.
not be accustomed to
Exactly.
eating certain things that are on the menu
Yeah.
at school, and so they don't eat.
And that will impact their learning.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
then when they come
somehow.
to your classroom, after lunch, and they're like lethargic.
Exactly.
And that impacts behavior.
Not interacting. Yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Attention,
Absolutely.
attention
Yes.
span.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that when these children came in and they weren't ready? They weren't
Yeah.
prepared to learn, and then that created some behavior issues. Was it a struggle for you?
I think nutritious. It's been always an issue, and it comes back to. I hate to say it, but it comes back to our culture,
And home environment.
that we're not we didn't have that knowledge of what was good, and what was not
Yeah,
good
absolutely.
for that child. We were like we were more. A lot of families were more in survival mode. Whatever they had in the fridge, whatever they have in the kitchen, they give their child, and it will continue and continue. And there were parents that they were sending their children to school. They didn't have food at home, and expecting the school to provide
I'm
that.
just going to say that the expectation that
Exactly.
the school will help
Yes,
them.
yeah.
But then you still don't know your
Absolutely,
child.
yes.
Who knows? You don't know that your child is still going to eat the food.
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah,
Right.
and it comes. Everything is nutrition, their environment at home. I think that plays a big role in their growing. And I think like I said before, if they don't have the proper nutritious and environment at home, then it will affect their learning.
So that brings us back to the conversation we had earlier about nature nurture.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
nature, it's your temperament, it's what you were born with, your genes, your genetics, and then nurture is how your environment
Yeah.
raises you,
Exactly.
how what you're exposed to, what your parents exposed
Absolutely.
you to. You know,
Absolutely.
did your parents read to you? Did they
Mm-hmm.
give you nutritious food?
Yeah.
Did they provide breakfast? You know, 5 meals: breakfast,
Exactly.
lunch, dinner,
Yes.
snack.
Yeah.
But then sometimes it's enables. Maybe that child went to daycare. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so you know you have two working
Yeah.
parents,
Yes.
and you depend on a babysitter,
Yes.
a caregiver
Yeah.
to provide what you think they would. But you know, it's different. It's different for a babysitter or caregiver to
Yeah.
have the same
Absolutely. Yes.
expectation
Mm-hmm.
or passion. You
Yes.
know, if it was me, I'd make sure my children ate. You know, ate
Yeah.
something.
Exactly.
But you
Yes.
know, you go to a babysitter, you go to a daycare, and
Yeah.
they may skip that
Yeah.
meal.
And you know what? Sometimes you do have that uh those values at home. You know, like you're very big in what they eat and and all that. But somehow, like now, we're experiencing that with my grandson, that he is going to school, and my daughter is happy. He's like, "Oh, I don't have to feed him breakfast at home. He's gonna
Interesting.
have breakfast."
Yeah.
But for our surprise,
Uh-huh.
he did not eat breakfast in 2 days in a row.
Wow.
And I said, "That's not good. That's not good. So you gotta make sure that he have breakfast at home, so he gets what he likes. And even though he has breakfast at school, he might eat one thing or not at all, but at least he ate something at home. That he's not gonna be starving when he's learning. He's not gonna be like sleepy or tired
Yeah,
because he
absolutely.
has low levels of energy.
You're right.
And so that I show my daughter that is a very important thing.
Yes.
Make sure that he eats the right thing, that what he likes, or his fruits and eggs and whatever he likes in the morning,
Right.
because that will affect.
Yeah.
Like somehow it will affect his learning.
I laugh because I remember growing up.
Yeah.
Growing up, and my mom and dad was adamant. You are
Oh.
not leaving this home.
Without eating.
I mean,
Without
up
having
to high
breakfast.
school, up to adulthood. Having my own children. My parents, my dad,
Yeah.
did those children eat?
Mhm.
Did they eat breakfast?
Yes.
Did you give them breakfast?
Right.
Even my husband, we were both on the same page. He was even more so.
Yeah.
He prepared the breakfast sometimes.
Yes.
He create the snacks for them.
Right.
We would, buy the foods that we think that
Yeah.
not only nutritious but also that they would like. And of course, they're all not all going to eat the same
Yeah.
thing, but giving them exposure to and the routine. And we talked about
exactly.
routine. We talked about schedule,
Yeah.
and that they know that they're not going to leave the house without being offered.
Exactly.
Offered.
Yeah.
She's sitting at the table, and of course it's your choice if you're going to eat, but there's going to be some
Yeah.
impact if you don't.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So,
yes.
like you said, being the energy level and being sleepy,
Yeah.
your attention span, you start to get a
No,
little
that is.
tired.
I think that's a good start. It's a big thing. If you don't have a good breakfast, if you send your child to school without no food, it is most likely that your child will be, impact in a negative way.
Yes, absolutely.
And,
And then
yeah.
not only that, it trickles down. So
Yeah.
now the child is having a bad day. It looks like a behavior problem.
Yes,
So now you have the teacher
exactly.
not getting what her expectations are
Yeah.
for this classroom.
Exactly.
So, you may be teaching, how many children did you have in your class?
I had, with the autism setting, I had seven children. But I was teaching second grade, 29
students.
students.
29
Yeah.
students. So you have one child. And I mean, it's if you're in a classroom with 29 children, I think there's going to be probably half of the children didn't eat.
Yeah.
I mean, the behavior
Exactly.
that comes with poor nutrition or deprived
Yeah.
of, so now you're feeling sleepy.
Yeah.
And that impacts your behavior.
Yeah,
So-
and you know what? And that comes with when I was teaching the grade, before assessing, before moving forward to, okay, somebody else with, that they can, assess them with any program, I will ask the parents, did they eat at home? Did they have good breakfast? Are they eating at the cafeteria? Before that, because I know that's a big issue.
Yes.
It is really important. And some parents, they don't realize that that's a good start in the morning. Like if you have, it's like, there's, have you seen all those commercials that people are go hungry and they become like zombies and monsters?
Yes, absolutely.
And once they have a chocolate, once they eat something, they become human
Absolutely.
beings, right?
I mean, even adults. Even adults. If
exactly.
I didn't eat in the morning and now I have to go and work with families or I have to go into a meeting,
Yeah.
How am I feeling? I'm feeling tired. I don't want to be here. My
Yeah.
mood is impacted.
Exactly.
Maybe I can be a little bit snappy,
Mm-hmm.
short with
Yeah.
coworkers, colleagues. So now I'm looking like a problem, because my behavior
Yeah.
is not, conducive to the environment.
Yeah,
And so I
exactly.
could be labeled.
Yeah.
Your child will be
Yes.
labeled.
Yeah.
The teacher who doesn't understand, who has to move. The teacher has to
Exactly.
move. Okay, I have 29 children.
Exactly.
You
I don't
have a
have-
behavior
yes.
issue. I don't have time.
Yeah.
And so what it sounds like is, it's like you said, it starts from home. It's the
Yes.
foundation.
Foundation.
And we cannot rely simply on the school system.
Exactly. Yeah. No, we can't.
Yes.
No, it starts at home, and I think school is we reinforce
Yes.
what they leave at school, their experience at school, their relationship with their parents, their environments they have, and I think it's sad because, like you say, I have 32 children. Imagine, out of those 29, out of those 32 children, 10, 20 are misbehaving because they didn't eat.
Yes.
Oh, they didn't sleep, because that's another thing.
Yeah.
They didn't have enough sleep.
Yes.
They go
Absolutely.
to bed really late and they wake up really morning. So their sugar levels, their energy,
Absolutely,
it's a
yeah.
mess. It's out of,
Absolutely. I totally get it.
and as a teacher, we have to deal with that, but it's not fair, like a label a child with, you have this issue before seeing what is going on at home. And like you said, it comes back to their foundation. It comes back to what they're living at home, their experience, and and if that's the message we can give,
Yes.
for a lot of parents that they have, maybe their children are not in school yet, how they can navigate at home,
I totally agree.
make our life, make the school district more easier to work with their children.
So it sounds like what we're trying to say is that the foundation, the family,
Yes.
is the first and foremost most resource.
Yes.
The parent-child
Absolutely.
interaction starts at home. Those 5
Yes.
domains that I mentioned, the
Exactly.
social, the emotional,
Yeah.
the cognitive,
Exactly.
the motor skills, and the language all start at home.
Absolutely.
And the building of all those.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like I said, they all don't grow at the same time. But
Yes.
you have to nurture those in
yeah.
areas
Absolutely.
in
Yes.
order for them to transition into a program.
Yeah.
Because they are going to transition.
Yeah.
You can homeschool them, wherever the case is.
Yes.
They're going to be exposed to the environment.
Yeah,
Somehow,
exactly.
maybe through sports, maybe through after school program, whatever the case, they are going to be exposed to other people. And you want to ensure that these children, that you've given them the tools, the skills,
Exactly, yes.
and the opportunity
Yeah.
to succeed. I
Exactly.
think the end result is to succeed. And that's all we
Exactly.
want for our children,
Yeah,
to succeed.
of course, absolutely.
Right?
As a parent, that's our goal.
Yes.
That's our goal to, I'm sure you did the same with your three children. You project a future for
Yes.
them since they
Yes.
were little, and that's what I'm trying to teach my daughter. I say the very first 3 years of Santi, that's my grandson, Santi's life, it's crucial, it's essential.
Critical.
What he's getting, positive or negative, will affect his child. He would,
Yes.
his future. So it is very important that parents understand that,
Yes.
that what they getting at home and what they're receiving at home,
Yes.
it's very important. So
So we'll close on that note that home and family life are the most important element of the children's lives, and that helps them move into the next part of their
yeah,
journey.
exactly.
So Anna, I thank you. It's been great, a wonderful conversation we had.
Thank
I mean,
you.
I feel the
You're welcome.
passion, and I love that you have so much experience, not only raising your children, but also educated in the field, special ed, and elementary education. But now you get to use all these skills that you've acquired over these years with your grandson.
Yes.
So
I think
thank you
that's the
so
best part.
much. Yes, that is the best
Yeah,
part.
I think that's the
It's
best
a
part.
whole nother opportunity for you to,
Yeah.
to challenge yourself in another way. And now, not only that, you're helping your daughter,
Yeah.
right? She'll listen, maybe she won't,
Yeah.
but at least you're there to guide and support. And like you said, taking it back to immigrants or families who are coming from another country and they didn't have that experience. So it's
Exactly.
kind of like that. Now your daughter has that support. She has that soundboard to bounce back on,
Yeah.
where you can offer some of that experience and exposure. So thank you so
Exactly.
much for helping your grandson and helping your daughter. And this was so great. I'm gonna have you back. We're gonna
Of
come back.
course.
We're gonna
Yeah. Thank you.
so yeah. And I think our next topic, since we kind of ended on family and the
Yeah.
foundation, we're going to continue that conversation and we're going to talk more and expand on what that really looks like.
Yeah, I think that would be a great topic. But thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you. We'll see you on the next episode 2 of Early Head Start, early education, and what it means, with families. So thank you. Bye, Anna.
Bye. Thank you so much.